Hello, and again, welcome to Bit Depth. I'm Santiago Ramones. Across from me is...
Troy Anthony Small.
How are you doing?
I'm all right. I'm not going to lie, a little nervous, but I'm all right.
That's good. Is this worse than performing?
No, not at all. No.
So my usual first question, what do you do? Who are you?
Well, I do a lot of things. I am a musician. I studied classically as a bass baritone.
Mm-hmm.
I studied for years, starting in Tulsa, and completed my undergrad at University of Central Oklahoma in 2015, and decided to complete a master's degree in voice performance as well. Completed that this past May in 2018. And I am lucky enough to have been teaching and tutoring privately since 2007. I currently teach private voice, private piano, and tutor for music theory, and run a small, I guess, amateur music publishing company. And I also do some music transcriptions and a few other things, musically making beats and production and whatnot, so, among other things. But that's all I can think of.
Which of these things is like your main thing?
I mean, all of them, I guess. You know, honestly, it's just because it's kind of an interesting story, because I had absolutely no intentions of being a classical performer. When I started school and started studying voice, that was the only option. You didn't have a contemporary voice program such as ACM, you know, so you study classical voice. But fortunately for me, I was fascinated with the physiology of the instrument, so it was right up my alley. I wanted to learn how to sing efficiently, not necessarily to be a classical singer, but I wanted to be my best, the best type of singer I could be. You know, I started with production and making beats on Finale. Or,
making beats on Finale.
Well, not necessarily. Let me rephrase that. Let me clear that up. Well, you can make.
I'm sure you can. You can. That is the weirdest way to do so.
Well, you know, they have percussion instruments on there, so you can do that. I guess I should say I was arranging and composing on Finale, but making the beats in Fruity Loops.
Okay, yeah.
And I would use Cubase or, you know, attempted to use Pro Tools. But back then you needed another component, and like Firewire. Anyone remember Firewire?
Right, yeah.
But I guess at the time, over the last couple of years, my main focus has been classically. But within the last couple of months since I've completed my degree, I've kind of shifted back to where I was before, and kind of working on the attempted singer-songwriter stuff as much as possible, just to see where it can go. You know? But I guess that would be my focus right now.
Yeah. So how did you get thrown into this music world? How did you start in music?
Dude, I mean, I've always been kind of enraptured in music in some way, shape, or form. It really started with my parents. You know, I come from a Caribbean household, and traditionally...
Wearing that Jamaica shirt?
Yes, I had to wear it. I was like, you know what? Let me represent. So, my father actually had a pretty vast record collection. So, you know, on Saturdays and weekends when we cleaned the house, there was always radio or records playing, and all types of genres. My mom kind of exposed me to a lot of adult contemporary. So there was a lot of Barbra Streisand played. There was a lot of Pointer Sisters played. There was a lot of harmonic music. My dad was very heavy into reggae and jazz.
Cool.
So Bob Marley was one of the first. The first three were Bob Marley, Pointer Sisters,
dig the big Bob Marley poster over here.
There was a huge Bob Marley poster, which I used to represent. I mean, seriously. And I love that it's right across from the degree. So it's kind of like my priorities, sort of.
Yeah.
You know? But it just goes back so far. I mean, but I grew up in New York City and didn't move to Oklahoma till maybe 19 years ago. So I had no intentions of studying music, ironically, until I left New York and came to Oklahoma.
Yeah.
You know, 'cause I was never taught that you could get a degree in music, you know, so I really didn't know. So I was born into it, but it wasn't till I got here and realized that you could make or get an education in music that I really said, okay, I'm going to do this. And that didn't happen until I was in my early 20s. So that was maybe 2000, 2001. Yeah. So I've been at this for a while.
Yeah. So did you start as more of a singer and you just like would find music and sing it and perform that, or were you more of a songwriter and you were like, hey, I made this thing, let me show you?
Yes and no. Well, when I was in New York, when I was a teenager, I had a bunch of friends, and we would, we were just stupid kids. We would take our little boom boxes and cassettes, yes, and then just kind of, if we had instrumentals, we'd sing and record ourselves. This was like 20, 25 years ago. Or we record songs off the radio and just sing along with them playing in the background, and just having fun on the weekends because we couldn't go out. We were teenagers, but that was kind of how it started. Even before that, when I was in fourth grade and in Brooklyn, I was in a glee club, and that was pretty much my first experience. The year before that, we in third grade we played recorders, as we always do in elementary school. So that was when I started playing the recorder in third grade. That was the first time I ever realized or learned treble clef. Yeah, and that stuck with me from third grade until when till my 20s. But that was the first time I can think of that it really hit me. Yeah, and then when I came here, I just tried something.
At what point, like, what made you decide to go, well, I can't have a real job, quote unquote real job. I have to do music as my life's thing.
I don't even think at this point, I mean, I still have a real job is what I'm trying to say. What is quote unquote real job? But it really wasn't until I was 20 or 21 where I said, okay, I want to do this. I actually left New York to come here and study aeronautical science to become a commercial pilot. Yeah. And I was in flight school for a while, and then decided that I didn't want to do it after developing a mild fear of flying. So, so I kind of thought, why would I put anyone else's life in danger? Right. But then I just kind of, at that time, after leaving school, I really was kind of not sure of what I wanted to do. And I always would write poems or something like that and have tunes in my head. But I really wasn't sure how to convey that. And before I started writing music, I would do poetry slams. I did a couple of slams in Tulsa, I was nervous. I was always nervous, but I had a lot that I wanted to say. And when I said what I had to say, I kind of thought, well, now I hear music in my head. How do I convey that? Yeah. And in 2001, I started working at Barnes & Noble. I'm not promoting or giving any kind of endorsement or anything like that. I'm just stating. But I started reading books on music theory and just trying to convey what I was hearing in my head. Yeah. And I bought a keyboard. That little keyboard that I have here still to this day, that little Yamaha 61 keyboard. And that's just kind of how I learned. I still have those complete idiots guides of music theory that I still use to teach my students, and that was really when it started, and really when I made the decision after, there was, I think that was pretty much it. Yeah.
What are some of your biggest influences?
Ooh. Vocally, I've always been, I guess I've gravitated more to female vocalists than anything. Most of the music that I grew up was, for lack of a better phrase, black music. But at the time, that's how it was even categorized. Yeah. I mean, because you look at the Billboard's R&B, the hot R&B HipHop singles track. Back in the late 70s, early 80s, it was referred to as the hot black singles chart. So it was black music. But I'd have to say it's always been the female vocalists. Minnie Riperton is probably my favorite artist of all time. Most people know her for the 1974 recording of Lovin' You. And but I mean, her albums were her albums are amazing, and her voice, she was one of the few singers at the time who was writing, producing for herself, along with her husband, Richard Rudolph. She's definitely my number one. I would also say Donna Summer. A lot of people kind of pigeonhole her, but if you just strip away and listen to the voice and the production, she also was a great songwriter too. the instrument of the belt range of her voice, but also the head voice. So it was just always awesome to me. LaBelle, the group, I'm not just talking Patty, I'm talking Sarah Dash, Nona Hendrix, you know. I mean, they were so influential. You look at their 1974 album, Nightbirds, you think of Lady Marmalade, you know.
But I'm not as well versed in this as you are, but you can list as many names as you want, and I'll be like, yeah,
oh,
sure.
Okay, yeah. Well, you know, that's all good. This is for everyone to check out.
Yeah. Definitely.
Do your research, please. I mean, because these are artists you may have heard the tracks to, their most popular songs to, Lady Marmalade, Loving You, but they, for lack of a better phrase, they may have been categorized as one-hit wonders. But when you listen to the album and the lyrical content, they were talking about, you know, sexual freedom, respect as women, you know. LaBelle had this great song called Get You Somebody New, and the opening line is, if you want somebody to be your slave, get you somebody new, you know. So that was always influential to me. But then the reggae, always, the roots reggae influence. Bob Marley, Burning Spear, the roots reggae of the 70s and the 60s, Rocksteady, and those were pretty much what shaped me. But then growing up in Brooklyn, you had hip-hop, which was coming out. I mean, my first record that I ever bought was Salt and Pepper, the 12-inch for Pushin' and Tramp, which is right there to this day, to God. So I'm blessed to have grown up in New York City and had these different influences, the Caribbean influence, the New York City influences, the Afro-Latino influences that were going on, you know, as well, because it was really, growing up in the Flatbush section of Brooklyn, you know, there was a lot of Afro-Caribbean things going on, Afro-Latino things going on. So, I mean, I was just kind of born into it.
Yeah.
So,
and what's sort of influencing your music today? Is new music as good or whatever? That's kind of a whole separate argument, but yeah.
You know, times change, people change, sounds change. I'm kind of reacquainting myself with new music. I'm not as impressed with a lot of, that sounds really snooty of me. I'm not as impressed. But, you know, there definitely has been a sonic shift, but also a shift in the music industry over the last 20, 15 years. And a lot of what the major labels are putting out, to me, aren't as impressive as they were to me 10, 15, 20 years ago, but I'm sure that my parents were saying the same thing to me 10, 15, 20, you know what I mean? So, I mean, I still listen to a lot of 70s funk. There were a couple of labels, underground labels out in New York in the 70s and 80s, South Soul Records, West End Records, Prelude Records, and that's pretty much what I'm listening to a lot of right now, or what I've been listening to a lot of underground funk, a lot of underground dance that came out of New York City in the 70s and 80s, out of places like the Paradise Garage. These were influential places in the subculture, or not the subculture, but the culture of gay New York City, you know? So not necessarily the top 40 stuff that was out there as a kid for me, but kind of the stuff that my older cousins were listening to, or was playing on the boom boxes around the way in Stapleton. Because, you know, so that's kind of what I'm listening to now. But I will say this, I'm not gonna lie, I like Cardi B. I do like Cardi B. I like her flow. I do. Like I said, I grew up in hip hop, and for a long time, I was just kind of disappointed out of what was coming out. You know, it was just it really wasn't true to the culture of what hip hop was. It was just repetition, you know, and no disrespect to anybody who's making their money. That's them. Sure. That's what they choose to do. But it seemed less about the artistry than a hit. But I mean, I do like Cardi B's flow, but I'm just trying to kind of reacquaint myself with what's top 40, you know what I mean?
What is sort of your sort of pie in the sky goal, but also what's your like realistic goal?
Oh my God.
As a musician?
Jesus. Is it bad that I don't really have one? You know, I just always wanted to.
I don't think it's a bad thing at all.
You know, I honestly can't say there's one thing. You know, I just always wanted to be able to do whatever it is I want. Musically, artistically, or whatever, you know. If I wanted to sing, if I wanted to audition for an opera, I want to be able to do that, which theoretically I have the education and I have the degrees and I have the resume to back that up if I do, if and when I do audition for opera houses. But at the same time, here I am recording, going back to the music that I've been recording for over a decade and now trying to put that out. So it's really just independence. That's, I think, if I could put it in a word, independence is more than anything.
That's especially important nowadays, given the way that the record label industry is going, and all of the publishing nightmares that are going on. Don't ever sign a 360 deal.
Okay. See, that's something that's kind of new terminology to me. I've heard of that, but I'm wondering if that's along the lines of cross-collateralization, where they're taking money from all of your... Yeah. Okay. See, that is part of the reason why I never... Even when I made the decision in my early 20s, in the early aughts, to pursue music, I never said, okay, well, I want to go sign with Arista Records.
Exactly.
I want to go sign with Universal or anything like that, because I knew I had nothing to back up my argument. I really couldn't I couldn't articulate what I was hearing. And that's more why I started studying. But I also knew, after watching many episodes of Behind the Music, there were a lot of components of the business industry. And actually, that's kind of where I started while I was producing or learning production. I started reading books on this business of music, learning about payola, learning about the performance rights organizations, ASCAP, BMI, CSAC, learning about master, and and now here I am trying to figure out, well, where do I go now? But it's been so long, so much has changed. You don't necessarily need to go to a major label. You have digital distribution through multiple outlets. So
and I mean, talk about that. You do have your own publishing. So what is that? What is it, and what's that like?
Well, it's still new to me, because there's so much to publishing that I don't even understand. But I know basically a publisher, it's not necessarily literally publishing music, although I do that literally. But it's more plugging the record. You have a record, and you're going to the outlets. You're saying, "Hey, I have this song, this piece." That's classically, I guess.
Right.
I have this song, but me as an independent publisher, because I'm so new to this, I would probably have to relinquish some of those publishing rights. Not necessarily all of them, but you look for co-publishing deals or something like that. But right now, where I am, I basically use Reverb Nation, or I go through SoundCloud or something like that, and I'll record a song. But typically, or basically, you can just act as your own publisher and name. It doesn't. I hate to say it means nothing, but you can always act as your own publisher and name, just trying to plug the record. So
yeah. And what's been the biggest lesson that you've gotten out of trying to do all this yourself?
Ooh. It's only recently where I'm realizing no man is an island. So it's easy to want to do it yourself, but it's only recently where I'm realizing maybe it's time to start bringing in a team and bringing other people, because when you focus on the business, it almost is leaving the artistry behind.
It sucks the soul out of the music.
Seriously. It's because I am, I recorded the song and I put it out on Reverb Nation a week ago, and I got it on Spotify and got it through some digital distribution, and it's a song that I've been working on for a long time. But I worked on all the business aspects of it, and now I'm thinking, God, I can't even remember the last time I played it at the piano. So it's give and take, but balance. You gotta, there's not one thing that I want to do. I want to be I want to be aware of everything, but you're gonna have to eventually get some help, right? Seriously.
What's sort of been your biggest musical hurdle that you've gotten past, and then what's something that you're working on now that you're still like, ugh?
I think something that I'm still working on is relinquishing that control. I've always been apprehensive, going back to the whole Behind the Music and all that good stuff. You're looking for a manager, you're looking for a road manager, a tour manager, or something like that, but you may not know this person, and you're thinking, okay, do they really want to see me grow? You know, I guess that's really essentially what you want in the team. You want a team of people that want to see you grow as well. Because, I mean, if you don't grow, if you don't make money, they're not going to get paid. So, I mean, they have to have your best interest at heart. But I don't know what the biggest hurdle for me. I think as a student, the biggest hurdle as a student musician, financing your education is a huge hurdle. You know, that is a huge hurdle for some of us. But I think my biggest hurdle, insecurity. We all have our own insecurities. We all, you know, especially if you're a major, if you're a music major or something like that, or, you know, even if you're not a music major and you're just doing it, you know, sometimes insecurity can creep in and you're like, oh my God, am I making the right decision? Is this right? You know, but at the end of the day, you got to get your feet wet to swim. You got to try, you know? And so I would probably be my biggest hurdle, you know, but, you know, and anyone I think can be their own worst enemy or their biggest hurdle, you know, so.
Yeah. So how do we make money in this? How do we survive off of this?
I'm still learning.
Right?
Right? I mean, I'm still learning, to be honest, honestly, you know, and that's kind of going back to the first question about the day job. You know, I still work part-time. Yeah. I finance it working part-time in a library, but I also teach privately, you know, so that's how I do that. And I do other things, you know, but you may solicit your services, do church gigs. As a vocalist, you do church gigs, or even as an instrumentalist, you're going to do a church gig. If you want to work for a church, you know, if you don't, you know, it depends on your genre. If you're a contemporary musician, I would assume that you would gig, like at a local, which is something that I am actually trying, that's kind of where I'm sticking my toe into right now, trying to figure out how to differentiate the classical realm from the non-classical realm. How do you gig as a non-classical artist? You know, do I go to the venue myself and say, hey, I'm such and such and give me a set, you know what I mean? Or do I have someone represent me? You know, I mean, I'm just some schlub who comes from nowhere. They're like, what? But you got to do what you got to do. That's the short answer. You know, I mean, I'll do arrangements for people. If you have a song in B flat, I mean, I'll put it in a finale and say, hey, I'll transpose it up to B for you or something like that. So basically, know your skill set, know yourself, and that's how you do it. Hustle, you know.
You're saying you teach privately. There's a distinction between being a performer, being a musician, and teaching people how to be a performer and musician.
Yes.
So what is that distinction? And
well, there is the argument that those who can do and those who can't teach.
Right.
I don't necessarily agree with that.
It's dumb.
You know, but I love performance. To me, you know, I'm introverted in a lot of ways. It's not always the case, but in a lot of ways. And I feel when I'm on the stage, be it a recital or if it's an operatic character or whatever, even if I'm singing, you know, when I was singing with the UCO chamber singers, singing a jazz solo or something like that, it's cathartic. It's cathartic. And, you know, you know, when you're studying a song, it doesn't matter what genre it is, you put yourself in that song. Yeah. And that's kind of what I tell my voice students, particularly. You can stand on a stage and recite text to the beat all you want to, but if you don't believe it, the audience is not going to believe it. And we're just waiting for you to get off the stage after that. Yeah. And we're just going to be polite and applaud for you, but you got to relate it to yourself. And just, I think that's definitely something that I convey to my students. Look at that text, look at the poetry if it's an art song or something like that. But how does that relate to you? How does that speak to you? How are you going to make me believe it? Because it's what is it? Symbiotic? Is that what they say? It's a flow, you know, for me as the singer to the audience and to the collaborative musician. We, you know, it's cyclic. So we want to keep that moving. But the second one of us breaks that cycle, it becomes evident. So even when we flub, you got to keep it moving, right? Yeah. Easier said than done, but
right. And I feel like it's kind of weird that we call it recitals more so than we call it like performance.
Yeah.
We're reciting music at you as if it's not even.
I mean, the academic term,
Right, yeah.
But I guess you're gigging otherwise or something like that, right? I'm still learning about that, seriously.
How do you feel like as a singer, shows like The Voice and American Idol have sort of turned this this talent, as they call it, but this skill, instead of, working your ass off as you've been, you just go on a show.
Well, initially in my 20s, I was just like, I kind of was like, this is terrible. This is horrible. Kind of how I felt about Garage Band and Rockstar. You know what I mean? It's like, it takes away from the artistry. I don't know if I feel as strongly about the people. I don't feel strongly about, the people who go on there, the contestants. I'm not going to knock them if they truly have the skill to back it up. You look at the first Idol winner, Kelly Clarkson. You look at Fantasia. You look at Ruben Studdard. There's some good voices that came out of American Idol. Yeah. Or out of The Voice. I've watched maybe 1 or 2 seasons of The Voice or something like that, but I've never really followed. I don't really follow reality, the reality genre. But there's been talent that's come out of it. But there have also been people who have exploited it. Yeah. But it's there have been contestants who have exploited it as well as the producers, and so on one level I feel, well, why the hell did I spend all this time and money studying to be degreed if it's just becoming a quote unquote novelty? Because that's kind of what it seemed, for a long time I felt as a singer, we were secondary, a novelty or something like that, when it shouldn't be like that. But to the contestants who do that, I have a problem with, the William Hungs out there. I thought that was ridiculous, but whatever. But I think more than anything, my beef with Idol and that type of vacuous, whatever you want to call it, was the control they have. And that goes back into me not wanting to sign with the label, because you're basically controlled by this company for I don't even know how long, but they own your publishing, they own your masters. So whatever you do and whatever you want to do, you have to prove to them. So I never really wanted to be in control. I think that was more, or I never wanted to relinquish control, I should say. You know what I mean? But overall, I guess that would have been my number one reason for getting into this business in the first place, because I didn't want anyone in control. I wanted to do something that I could do. So, yeah.
Sort of even more vague. What makes good music? What makes bad music?
Ooh. I mean, excuse me. I'm apprehensive about using the terms. I don't like to use absolutes in music, unless it is absolutely applicable. And that's something I like to say to my students. I don't say never. I try not to say never or easy or anything like that. But I mean, if there is, I like a beat. I like a track. I like to dance. I like to shake. I like syncopation. I like bass. I like rhythm. But so it doesn't always have to. You don't always have to be on a soapbox in your music.
Sure.
We all have different emotions. We have happy times. We have good times. We have stressful times. We have chill times. We have love times. We cry. So it's life, Yeah. So there are different spices, different flavors. You get a little from column A, B, C, D, whatever. But I have likened a lot of the contemporary top 40 music to sugar, and said, because some folks call it bubblegum or whatever, and a little bit of sugar is all right every now and then, but there's only so much sugar you're going to ingest till you get diabetes. That's what I say. So, if you're just being repetitive and just saying nonsense and gibberish, that probably is bad, if you want to say that, you know what I mean? But once again, I can't knock anybody who's out there getting the money, because they get money, you know what I'm saying? But I wouldn't necessarily call that singing. quote unquote singing, you know what I mean? That's maybe what I like to call vocalizing or something like that, or vocal, whatever you want to call it, but it's not necessarily singing. So, I mean,
yeah.
What
advice do you have for other musicians that are trying to get work out here?
Trust yourself. That's the hardest thing to do. Research. I mean, but trust your gut. You know, if you don't have a good feeling about something, ask questions. Seriously. I mean, ask questions in general. Seriously. You know, like I say, you got to get your feet wet to swim and try new things. Don't be afraid to try things. Use your resources.
Yeah.
That's one thing I say, particularly to the students at UCO. You know, if you're a student, you have access to certain databases. You have access to sheet music, blah, blah, blah. Use those things, you know, and ask the questions. Ask the questions. Go online, use print, use digital, but if you're interested in radio, look up radio stations. Now, I mean, some places don't want unsolicited material, so you have to follow that, you know, but you got to find people. You got to find people around you, you know what I mean? But trust your gut. It's hard. It's hard, you know, and there's going to be tears. Trust.
What is the distinction between being a composer or songwriter and being a performer?
Ooh, I'll tell you this. It's composing for me has become a lot more difficult in my older years as I get older, lyrically, because I've always kind of knocked myself lyrically because, you know, I've always been, you know, lyrically, some of my musical influences were like Kate Bush or Steely Dan. And, you know, their lyrics are so idiosyncratic. And you're like, what the hell are they talking about?
Right.
But I was just always amazed how they could just make a beautiful song out of just this text. My lyrics are just obvious. It's like, it's a journal page. It's just how I'm feeling, you know. But as I grow older and I share pages of my journal, I have to think, you relive these moments, and some of these moments are hard to relive, you know. And then you think, as you record these songs, you have to keep reliving these moments, and reliving and reliving, you know. So that's not necessarily easy. And I have to say, do I really want to revisit this part, this event? You know what I mean? And lyrically, that's what I'd say. But performing, you know, you take those lyrics, you take that text, and you relate it to you, and hope, and maybe you can convey what the composer is saying, but you're saying it. You're taking what they're wanting to say, but you're making it yours in some way, shape, or form. So I guess that would be it.
Switching gears.
Okay.
There's no good transition for this.
Some water now.
Right. What is the role of spirituality or religion in your life?
Ooh, that's deep. Well, you know, as much as I may seem like it's not, it really is. I come from a pretty religious household. You know, my parents are Jamaican. They immigrated from Jamaica in the 70s. And it's a very Christian Catholic country. My father is Roman Catholic. My mother is Presbyterian, which I was christened as such. My late grandmother was apostolic. So I got religion from all types, you know. So I mean, and there was always a Bible in our house, and I still have a Bible in there. But, you know, it's been really difficult for me, you know, for several reasons. You know, I came out to my parents when I was 18. And so that was a big no-no coming from a Jamaican household.
Sure.
Particularly because a lot of people don't realize that homosexuality is still a law on the books, a colonial law in Jamaica. Buggery is how it's an old English colonial law, which is still on the books, and which carries a sentence of imprisonment for 8 to 14 years.
Jeez.
You know, folks don't realize that. You know, so when I came out, I mean, that just was the end of the world, Fast forward, this was 19 years ago. I mean, I'm in the center of the country while my parents are elsewhere, but
right.
and we don't necessarily address anything, but at the same time, I'm blessed to still have them.
Yeah.
Because I have to face the fact that there's so many of us who literally lose their lives, and so all that to say, it was hard as a child growing up. You hear all these stories of religion, you hear all these biblical stories, and you did your best.
Yeah.
But just this one thing that you have to deal with just negates everything else. So it just kind of felt when you have that moment, it's like, well, what the hell, you know? And so I was done for a while, but at the same time, as much as I may seem like I'm not religious, and I can't decide whether or not it's the upbringing or if it's messed you up or whatever, but in the back of my head, I still have some sort of, I won't say religion, but faith. I've never really lost my faith that there is a higher being, and there are those hardcore evangelicals who will, turn their nose up at you and say, "Are you just spiritual or something?" And I'm like, look, whatever for that. I'm not here to address your concerns. Back up, because there's a hypocrisy in that as it is. But I still have some sort of faith in a higher being, for sure.
Yeah. What is your definition of God?
I take my father's definition, even though he and I still battle to this day. When I was a kid, I asked, and he said, "God is good, period." So the way I've interpreted that is that any good deed is God.
Yeah.
God is not necessarily a being. To do good is to do God, to do God's work. Yeah. So that's just the way I've always interpreted that. And I know in my heart when I'm not doing good, you know what I mean? Right. When if I am combative with someone for some reason, I don't necessarily gain anything from that, but sometimes you got to let some folks know. That's just that's my New York upbringing, but but I mean, I just try not to bring any malice to the world, and I just try to step outside of myself and just think of someone else's perspective and how I may be perceived or what may be going on in their life, and just try to, do some good, So that to me is the definition of God, whatever good is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I like that a lot.
Thanks.
It's always really hard to phrase this question. So
try.
So far I only have it as free will ?
Well, I'm gonna need you to elaborate on that. Now, when you say free will,
like free will, as in there is something that allows us to make choices on our own. It's sort of, we are the ones that make the decisions ourselves, or while we are the ones that make the decisions, those are sort of influenced by the things that happened before, and it was kind of already what the path was.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. I think because of my faith, I mean, there's choice. We all have choices. We all make choices. We all have what I like to call intersections when we gain knowledge. You're going to go one way, you're going to go forward, left, right, or you're going to be stagnant or go back, right? But, I mean, I do believe in a reciprocity. I do believe, for lack of a better word, or maybe karma, but I do believe that everything happens for a reason. I have the ability to make all the choices in the world, but I don't know. If you define choice as free will, then we have free will. But I mean, honestly, at the end of the day, I think it's such a hard question. I know. It really is. Because, even though I do have enough faith to believe that God has a path for me, I'm still mature enough to believe, or maybe mature is maybe that's too strong a word, but I'm at least, able to realize that at the end of the day, there may not even be a God. You know, it might just be the end. It might just go black. You know, but I have to believe that everything that I have experienced and everything that I've accomplished and everything that I've set out to do was because, yes, I made a choice, but because God said, well, what are you looking at me for? Go do it. You know, I mean, I am not a type of person who prays for everything. You know, I mean, I may just look up and, you know, just point like this, you know what I'm saying? But I mean, I'm just like, do for self and handle it. You know, I know I'm not going to go kick somebody in the shin just to kick somebody in the shin. That's just, you know, but yeah.
So how do we reduce the division that seems to be permeating our culture much more prominently, but has always kind of been?
Communication and understanding. Communication, acceptance of our faults and the errors that we have committed, but not just us, but those who have come before us, or errors and maybe the good deeds of those who have come before us as well, you know. But communication, I mean, closed mouths don't get fed, right? But right now we are in such a political divide. We're in such a racial divide, it seems, but it's always been. It's never gone away. It's always, it's just like kind of at a tipping point. It's the pot bubbling over. It's the lid bubbling. You know what I mean? And a lot of it comes out of stereotypes. A lot of it comes out of misinformation. I'm not going to jump on anything against the quote unquote media, you know, because there's a difference between legitimate journalism and mass comm. No offense to mass comm majors or anything like that. You know, I mean, go ahead and do that. But there's a difference between journalism and being a pundit. You know what I'm saying? So there's that. But if we don't talk and try to understand where someone else is coming from, then it's just going to be assumed that we hate each other. Yeah. Right? But I toe several lines. You know, it's an interesting time being an openly gay, Black, first-generation American. You know what I mean? So, you know, I just look at those perspectives and once again, just thank God and for all the blessings that I've had. But communication and talking with people and trying to tell my stories and letting them know the situations I've been in, honestly.
Yeah. Have you had any like personal experiences where that has gotten a good result? I'm not saying it's like, oh, none of that's ever going to work. No, I'm saying it's like, give an example because I know that it does work.
All right. You know, there's the ongoing debate about use of the Nword. And I grew up, I'm just going to put my stance on that. I grew up in a household where that was the dirtiest word ever. It still is, and it still is to me. Now, I'm not going to knock a brother or sister for saying that because to me, it's cultural over racial, and that is a big problem. People just kind of lump all Black people together, all white people together, not realizing that it's not about race, it's culture. And then within each culture, there's a subculture because as I said, you know, I'm first generation American. It doesn't necessarily mean that I have all the similarities of someone whose parents were born here in the States, you know, because there's certain things that I don't understand. You know what I'm saying? Right. So there's that. But I think I lost your initial question. I'm sorry. You know, I ramble. So
good result.
Okay. About a year ago, I was at a place here in the Paseo. I think it was the Other Room, and talking about the Nword. That's what it was. And I overheard a conversation. I had a couple drinks. This young lady from some small town in Oklahoma who's Caucasian. She was with a group of her friends or whatever, justifying her use of the Nword because her Black friends told her it was okay. So after a repeated amount of usage, I stepped in and was like, you really need to understand that just because your people say that's cool doesn't mean everyone's gonna be cool with it. And we had a long conversation. She bought me a drink. You know, I mean, I was toasted after. You know, we should probably need to take that out. No, it's all good. But I mean, she was thankful after that because she hadn't really realized that. You know, and that's part of what I'm saying. It's not racial; it's cultural. Because that was that's part of her culture. That's part of their culture. But it's definitely not part of mine.
Yeah.
In my culture, it's the dirtiest thing ever. But I'm not gonna knock anybody. You know, just all I ask is that you don't address me as such.
Yeah.
So that's how I feel about that.
Yeah, yeah. How do we make the world a better place?
It goes back into that good mentality, I guess. I mean, you got to step outside of yourself every now and then. You know, I know there's a lot going on in the world. And, you know, sometimes it's hard. You know, sometimes we turn inward and we displace aggression. But that's one of the things that I try not to do. You know, I try to check myself. If I'm like, why, you know, whatever insecurity I'm feeling, I want to make sure that I'm not displacing that on you or someone else. You know, I got to check myself in that. But I mean, I guess there's the old golden rule, you know, you know, but that's, I mean, at the end of the day, you just want to do as much good as you can, you know, and think about the other person. Think about how you never really realize how your actions affect someone else. So if I cuss you out or something like that, you're going to take that and then you have to release that someplace else. And it's just this endless cycle. So I don't want to be a part of any reason anyone feels bad. You know, I mean, it doesn't always happen like that, but you know, I mean, that's the way I see it. You know, I try just to bring as much positivity as I can. Yeah. You know, don't always happen, but you try.
Well, on positivity, what makes you happy?
Besides music, completing a goal, or, you know, trying, you know what I mean? Because like I said, I mean, I'm my own worst enemy. You know, I'm my biggest hurdle. And it's easy for me to get insecure and just kind of hibernate in these four walls right here because I feel like, well, I got a PS3, I got this, that, and I got 2 turntables, and so I never need to leave. You know, I can make my own place here. But then you lose that connection. You lose that outside connection. So I think I lost your question again. God bless.
What makes you happy?
You know, I will say this. One thing that really makes me happy is when imparting wisdom on my students, when I see them make that connection, when those light bulb moments, as one of them says, that makes it all worth it to me. When I've done some good, when I know I've done some good, when I can see that I've helped someone grow in some way, shape, or form, that to me makes me happy. That makes me happy. That's just one thing that makes me happy. You know, so.
What advice do you have for people? Just in a broader sense.
Know yourself, learn or want to know yourself. It's not going to be easy. We all have things that we don't want to face. We all have trauma. We all have insecurities. But don't be afraid to ask those questions, you know, but don't be malicious in your intent, you know, so, you know, be real, you know, but use those resources, trust yourself, ask questions, you know, don't be afraid. I mean, there's a lot of times you might be on your own, you know, but the good will come. Yeah. Things will come. It'll come to you, but you got to trust yourself. And one of my students who's been with me for almost 4 years, I love this saying she said to me. She was, I think, 6 at the time. And, you know, as a student, when you're a musician, you know, you may mess up and then you want to go back to the measure or something like that. You want to go back to the beginning. I'm like, no, man, figure out where you are. And you got to jump back in, you know. And she said to me, 100 mistakes can be 100 lessons if you learn from every one of them. It's a child, you know. Yeah. So I took that and I take that. And so you got to get your feet wet to swim, right? even if I don't succeed in my goal, at least I tried. I have, the evidence, and so I'm gonna try again.
Yeah.
So yeah,
I like
just
that.
try, y'all.
What's something about you that people don't commonly know?
I have perfect pitch, acute perfect pitch to the point where I can tell you letter names and octaves typically. But I also have tinnitus in my left ear.
Oh crap!
It's interesting, and which is very interesting because I don't have tinnitus in both ears, but it's more it's common in both ears. So it was really dumbfounding to the audiologist. But I have difficulties hearing high pitches, like treble pitches in my left ear. So if it's like above an E4 or something like that, I really don't hear it. So you may see me lean in on my right ear or something like that because I'll hear highs in the right. So typically if there's a high pitch, like a hi-hat coming from the left, it sounds like it's coming from the right. So I may turn to the right or something like that. But yeah, so I have perfect pitch and tinnitus.
Yeah. What pitch is your tinnitus right now?
Ooh, it's several. It's like it's a C8 or 9. That's like the highest. Yeah, it's really high. I mean, I don't even think a 9 is a 9 is audible for humans. I'm pretty sure, but it's definitely like a C8. Sometimes it might go a little lower, and sometimes it seems to pulsate.
Yeah.
But yeah, I've been lucky enough. It actually happened 10 years ago last month. It was October 2008 that I developed tinnitus, and it was quite an experience. But yeah, that's one thing.
You can tell that story.
I mean, I don't even really know how it developed. I have my suspicions, which I'm not going to go into right now. But I mean, I can just remember being at a piano. It was like October 6th around 2008. And I was at my keyboard like 5 o'clock in the morning. And you know how the Oklahoma tornado sirens kind of wind up? It was kind of like that sound in my left ear, but I just remember the sensation of not being able to pick my head up. And I felt like my head was falling over. Well, I didn't realize my equilibrium was being thrown off.
Yeah.
And so I just kind of worked my way over. Basically, I was from here to where my bed is now, and I just kind of went 10 feet over, maybe like to the bed, and I just threw myself on the bed and just said, God, if I'm gonna die, just let me not feel any pain or anything. And I went to sleep. I woke up, and the ringing continued, and to this day it is incessant. And I don't really realize it until there's complete silence.
It's quiet enough.
So you hear one of my computers just kind of humming in the background. If the power to go out and just complete silence, then it's really obvious. I mean, I can hear it now, but yeah, it's you acclimate to it, particularly as a classical artist. I can remember singing in operas and being on the stage and actually kind of having to find a downbeat, because when you have an orchestra, you don't always have a percussive instrument,
right?
So you're trying to find a downbeat. You're listening and you're watching a conductor, but sound carries. You're having to worry about all that. So you learn and you acclimate with what you have, basically.
Yeah, I have it in my right ear.
Do you?
Yeah,
that's so crazy. So you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. So I guess
no, you're good. It's fine.
Did you experience any of the same physical?
No, it's actually been really gradual in the at some point it just sort of became like, oh yeah, that's always there.
Okay.
But I think the first time that it really became present was I had a ear infection 3 or 4 years ago.
Yeah.
And it started as a sinus infection, but it made its way.
Yard.
And so my eardrum
oh my gosh.
And so after that, I could tell that there was an imbalance from left to right, and so I hear lows better in my left, which is weird because my right is just more sensitive.
Okay.
I think because of the ear infection.
Okay.
And so, but the tinnitus is still there.
Yeah.
So I think it was mostly after that ear infection. But I didn't have that imbalance thing. Okay. But I do remember the day whenever my eardrum burst that I was just I can't hear out of my right ear.
Wow.
And it's really scary.
Yeah.
Being a musician.
Yeah.
Really scary.
It's traumatic.
Yeah. So But yeah.
Sharing that.
But last question.
Yeah.
Maybe the easiest or the hardest question.
Dun, dun, dun.
Cake or pie?
Ooh. Ooh. Yes. Because Boston cream pie or cake, yes. Pumpkin pie, yes. Sweet potato pie, yes. What else? Pecan pie, yes. Apple pie, yes. And I'll do some cake too. Carrot cake, yes, because I love cream cheese. Chocolate cake, yes. I mean, so I was a fat kid. There's something a lot of people may not know. Okay, here. Once upon a time, I was 300 pounds. Here we go. Yes, so there we go. Yes, I was obese. So yes, I still eat lots of cake and pie.
Oh yeah. Troy, thank you for doing this with me.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. This has been fun. I appreciate this.
Where can we find you and your things? Whatever online presence, plug your stuff.
Okay. Yes. Well, you can find me on Reverb Nation as Troy Small. That's my non-classical stuff. You can also find me on Reverb Nation as Troy Anthony Small. I tend to put my middle name in my classical stuff. Or you can just go to www.troyanthonysmall.com and check out some links there and leave a comment, join our mailing list, and just say hey. Or you can find me on Facebook, Instagram, Troy Anthony Small. I'm pretty easy to find if you just keyword Troy Anthony Small is a username. Right. Twitter, find me.
I will say that your Instagram is pretty top notch.
Thank you.
Your little videos, like, it's great.
Thank you. I try not to. It's like, what is the line?
Right.
I don't want my parents to call me. But thank you. I appreciate that.
Yeah. So once again, I'm Santiago Ramones,
and I'm Troy Anthony Small.
You can find everything that I do on my website, santiagoramones.com. I make music, which you can download or pay for my demo on Bandcamp, which is called Songs with Words. Or you can listen to some of my more electronic or composery stuff that's on my SoundCloud. You can also find this podcast on Apple Podcasts, on Stitcher, on YouTube. And you can leave a comment or review on any of those things. Let me know what you think about Troy.
Be nice.
Well, yeah, always be nice. And I always end my podcast with my 3 things. They shape my life philosophy. Those 3 things are: love never fails, it's going to be okay, I might be wrong.